I'm recording this days after the election. Nothing is certain at this moment. Somebody said that my anxieties have anxieties, and I believe that that may be true. Not so much as to who wins, although I think that is vitally important for the future of the nation and for the world, but also the reflection as to what has happened that has divided this country so. I used to think that we were at two ends of a spectrum and everything in between, that somehow we were held together by some common values, beliefs, and goals. It may take me a while to sort this out, but my initial impulse is to say, no, we're not. We do live in very different universes that see the world in very different ways. And how we address that as citizens and as the church is not a simple, "Pastor, what do you think?" as if this is an easy question. I would say that to remain faithful and prayerful are the most important things to do, to not let our anxieties have anxieties that will have anxieties that will have anxieties. Because then the sky truly will be falling upon us when it is not. I know it probably is an old saw, but I find it to be very comforting to return to prayer. Far too often in the world today, and especially in the church today, prayer is something that we do but don't talk about much, because it is a very individual thing to do. And I find that, given that I'm a pastor and have been a professional prayer all of my life, that I need at times like this to be quiet, to listen, and to join others who have prayed in what this book, Conversations with God, terms to be the treasure trove of those who recorded their prayers so that others might read them. It is the word conversation that struck me in the last day. The notion of the conversation with God. What is it that is deep within our souls that we would share, surface, even if we don't have words for it, to share that with God in our hope, and hope even in despair? This book is about 2 centuries of prayers by African Americans, and I thought it was an important one to turn to, because of all the communities in our nation, the African American community has lived with despair, desperation, hopes dashed to earth. And so I wanted to enter the conversation, to listen to the depths of heart. I turned to a prayer by Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman was the first African American dean of the chapel at Marsh Chapel at Boston University, where I attended seminary. I went to pray in the Howard Thurman seminar room. I had many other things that I needed to read that were assigned for my classes, and it is only now that I have read about Thurman in depth. Thurman was a mentor to Martin Luther King Jr. And I realized again that too often we think that prayer demands an answer, that somehow we are petitioning God for a particular thing within a particular time frame, as if it was an Amazon order that needed to be delivered prime and in pristine condition. I remember again when I was at the seminary that at the end of conversations about vital things around the faculty table, that when the president or the dean said, "We will continue the conversation next month," that I was like one of those Amazon Prime people. I wanted an answer now. After all, we had business to do. We had to move this enterprise forward. but to sustain the conversation, to listen to one another, to live into what we heard from one another. And that God gives us the opportunity to continue the conversation, to listen, to hear it anew. O God, I need thee. In the pious language of the 1950s, Howard Thurman wrote, I need thy sense of time. Always I have an underlying anxiety about things. Sometimes I am in a hurry to achieve my ends and am completely without patience. It is hard for me to realize that some growth is slow, that all processes are not swift. I cannot always discriminate between what takes time to develop and what can be rushed. Because my sense of time is dulled, I measure things in terms of happenings. Oh, to understand the meaning of perspective, that I may do all things with a profound sense of leisure, of time. I need thy sense of order. The confusion of the details of living is sometimes overwhelming. The little things keep getting in my way, providing ready-made excuses for failure to do and be what I know I ought to do and be. Much time is spent on things that are not very important, while significant things are put into an insignificant place in my scheme of order. I must unscramble my affairs so that my life will become order. O God, I need thy sense of order. I need thy sense of future. Teach me to know that life is ever on the side of the future. Keep alive in me the forward look, the high hope, the onward surge. Let me not be frozen either by the past or the present. Grant me, O patient one, thy sense of the future, without which all life would sicken and die. Time, order, and future. When my anxieties have anxiety, I yearn to listen to Howard Thurman's conversation with God and yours. Amen.